Hi everybody, my name is Alan. On behalf of the crew, I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Bridging Heaven and Earth. You know, I guess for everyone, there are things in their lives that in a way they wish were different. In a way they wish there was more health in a certain area, there was more money to be had for a certain thing, there was more companionship, there was more intimacy, there's more. And yet how many of us truly know that sense of peace, that sense of knowing, that sense of surrender into what people call God or love or truth? And really, I mean, we think that more, that bit of extra, that something in addition will bring us that love, that knowing, that truth. And yet we've all had times when we have gotten lucky, say, and we have gotten that addition. We have gotten that extra. We have gotten that more. And yet still, that hunger to have the next more, the next addition, still exists within us. And something in us also knows that we can have an experience where there's nothing in addition, there's nothing more, that it's complete, that we're full, that we feel the connection, the oneness of this incredible life we have, and the connection between us all. And that all the mores and all the separations and all the additions that we think we can have don't add to a squat, don't mean anything. And what is Bridging about again? What is Bridging Heaven and Earth? What is the show about? Is to bring people literally from all over the world who have extraordinary gifts through the gifts of their life, through the hard work of their lives, through the dedication of their lives, who in one way or another have experienced that essence, that truth, that knowing. And they come to share their love and their gifts with us on the set and with you out in the audience. And again, we have tonight somebody whose life is dedicated to that. DaEl Walker, he's a spiritual teacher, he's a healer, he's an author of the Crystal Book series, he's the founder and director of the Crystal Awareness Institute. He's the inventor of the Wheel of Life medallion, and also the inventor of the mandala chargers. And he travels the world teaching healing techniques that heal the physical body, heal, as we've talked about so much before, that they heal the heart, heal that hunger, heal that wanting to know by giving an experience of knowing, by giving us an experience of that unconditional love that's not dependent on a more, on an addition. And that's what we want. And throughout history, that's what the teachers and masters have done. They've traveled the world, sharing that gift, sharing that experience with people, so those people can then take that out, and just that momentum of love could expand throughout the world. And we also, as we normally do, we have these two beautiful music videos from Alana Sweetwater. It's from her CD, from Beyond or Behind the Veil. I think it's From Behind the Veil. It's a beautiful, beautiful CD, and we picked out 2 songs from that. So again, join me in a short meditation. Then we have DaEl with us. We have some beautiful videos. And again, it's an opportunity to, in another way, experience that truth, that knowing, that God, that love. And that's what we're here to do, and to share that with everyone, and to go in our daily lives and just bring that out and out and out. And so join me in a short meditation, then we're going to have DaEl, please. Hi everybody. Okay, so we're going to start with our first video. It's Alana Sweetwater. It's from her CD, From Behind the Veil. And the first song we're going to see is Grandfather Fly Me Low. It's written and performed by Alana Sweetwater.
Grandfather fly me low above the burning sky. I never felt so deep inside me to feel the pain unwinding.
Hi there. Well, welcome back. So we're on the set with DaEl. Welcome, DaEl. Great to
Thank
have
you.
you.
It's a real pleasure to be here.
That's great to have you. So, how did you get involved, in your life with crystals? How did that seem to be the connecting force for you?
I had no interest in crystals before I woke up spiritually. I woke up on January 21st, 1975, and lay in bed thinking, this is my 40th birthday. I've done what they asked me to do. A successful career as a contractor. I have the house, the kids, the dogs, the cat.
The mortgage?
The mortgage. I've done everything they asked me to do, and successfully, and I'm not happy.
Well, it's funny. I mean, I always said that at the beginning. I didn't even know that story. That's great.
Well, what I found is that I knew there was something that I needed to do, but I didn't know what it was. I had no awareness of crystals, no knowledge of metaphysical anything. But then a lady told me, my neighbor told me about a psychic fairs in San Francisco. Bear in mind, this is in 1975. They didn't have psychic fairs then. The psychic's just not like it is now. There's one on every corner. And they told me about it, and I went to it, and I met a man who gave me a reading that was so incredibly accurate that I had a private session with him at his home. And there, along with a lot of other things, he had on a shelf, he had some crystals. And for the first time, I saw them, and I saw them as something other than just a rock. And I asked him about it, and he told me that they were a source of power, and that I could get one from a rock shop. And I went there, I got one, and things began to happen really quickly. I found
when you talked about, you said that it's your 40th birthday and you had a spiritual awakening.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why don't you describe that? Because people who haven't had it, or people.
Well, the funny thing about it is every person who becomes a spiritual worker looks back and says, I know when it happened. I know when I woke up. Because I began to do things that were not physical. I began to look at life as something other than the senses told me. Something else was there, and I knew it even if I didn't know what I was talking about. And the truth of it is, when I first started, I was so ignorant, I didn't even know what the language was. And they were talking about chakras and kundalini and
so in other words, you woke
meditation.
up on this day and something was different.
Yes.
Something was just radically different.
I was asked, I knew I had done everything that I should do, and I wasn't happy about it because there was something I needed to do that I wasn't doing. I didn't know what it was. I had no idea, but it happened so quickly. I found a teacher who led me into an experience that started me to doing channeling with a group of 6 people, and that lasted for 2.5 years. I didn't know about channeling. I knew nothing. But I began to do it. I opened up my inner teachers who began to teach me. And being a very pragmatic contractor, I found out that I had to know the reason why, and I had to have something that worked practically for me. So if I wanted to do something, I would say, well, how do I do this, rather than just give me platitudes. There's hundreds of books about the universal laws and peace and harmony. But where's a good book about how to do healing? Especially since I began doing it immediately with my crystal.
Right. So right away you could heal.
Yeah, and this blew me away because I had no other healing ability that I had ever experienced before I had the crystal. And furthermore, I found out that if I laid the crystal directly on somebody's physical pain, it got very hot, and the pain disappeared. If I did this without the crystal, it didn't work.
Wow.
So immediately I began to experiment, because I've always wanted to know, what are the laws behind this? It isn't enough that you can do it. You should know why it works. Because if you know why it works, you can move beyond the experience into something new based on your understanding. And that's what I've done.
How did it work? Tell us, how, once you realized this gift was yours.
Well, I immediately found out that I went to try to find people who understood about healing. So I went to the churches first. And that was a big mistake. Because the churches simply don't know how healing works. It doesn't mean they can't do it. It doesn't mean they don't understand they're supposed to do it. It just means they don't understand how to do it. They don't know the laws and the rules behind it. All healing comes from God, but how do you make it work? See? Like anybody can pray, but can you make a prayer that works? Well, if you know how to do it, you can do it. But they don't even teach you, most churches I've ever been in, don't even teach you how to pray. I mean, they give you prayers, but they don't teach you the physics of it. And everything that works is of energy, and the law of energy is called physics. So there should be a methodology to everything. All you have to do is find out how it works. Does the energy go this way, go that way? Does it increase? Does it decrease? If you can measure and determine what that is, you can find out what the principles are behind it. At least you can get up a really good theoretical structure, and that's what I have.
Why don't you talk about that? The structure, how crystals work, how they heal, why certain crystals work with certain things.
First of all, you should know what healing is and what it isn't.
There's a start. If you had a good host, they would ask
start
that
at the
question.
beginning. Well, because most people don't really understand what the nature of it is. When something blocks the flow of energy to the cells begin to die, degenerate, they can't reproduce themselves, and they send out a signal that says, hey, I've got a problem here. Send me some energy so I can repair it.
And that's a lot of times a symptom.
Well, that's right. And what happens is the signal comes up first as discomfort and rapidly increases to physical pain and in intense pain and to disability if you simply cannot give the energy to the cells. Now, no matter what healing you do, and I don't care if you're a medical doctor or you're a laying on of hands faith healer, all healing works through energy. If you're using pharmaceuticals, you're using chemicals which convert to electromagnetic energy pulses which directly feed the cells, because the cells work not on chemistry, but they work on energy. So when you're dealing with that, you must think of yourself in terms of, what is it that I have to do? Well, number one, if there's something blocking the flow of energy, and it can happen through a lot of circumstances, it could be through chemical toxicity, it could be through some emotional trauma, it could be a physical trauma, it could be a break or a cut. There are a lot of ways where you can have a blocking of the flow from the normal charging part of the cell into the cell itself. So what you have to do with healing is you must, first of all, get enough energy flow of the right kind, bioenergy, life force energy, chi, ki, prana, whatever you want to call it. You get that kind of energy going directly into the cells. First, it must go through the block that's keeping the cells from getting the energy. This is the biggest part of healing. It is not the charging of the cells. That's actually quite rapid. 5 to 10 minutes you charge the cells up and start the major repair. But getting to the cells is the hard part. Especially if you have something like, say, a cancer. That's a lot of negative energy. Or AIDS or MS or any of the other major disability problems. There's a lot of negative energy blocking the flow through whatever reason or whatever method. What you have to do is you have to create an energy charge strong enough to go through, dissolve, or open a hole through that blockage, so then you can go directly to the cells and start the charging process. If you can do that, then the pain reduces or disappears because the signal is no longer needed. So if you look at healing, it's really simple. You have to get energy back to the cells. Now, how you do it, there's hundreds of ways to do it. And we all know of an awful lot of methods by which you can. What I found out is the crystal is an amplifier and an attuning device that actually automatically increases the bioenergy field of the body. Now, how did I know that? Well, I got myself a camera called a Kirlian camera. So it's to a high voltage field of 50,000 volts or greater. You impulse it directly into the body. You touch your fingertips on the plate, the camera plate, the film plate, and you take a photograph of the pictures of the energy that's around the fingertips. And it has like a corona of little sparks. When you do this, and you do this with a person who's sick, that sparks have gaps in it, and it's very low in light. If I take and do a healing directly on that same area within 5 minutes or less, maybe even 1 or 2 minutes, I can cause an increase in the energy spark coming out of that area, which tells me that there is a charging effect that's taking place.
And how would you do this? What would the physical aspects? Would you put your hands on it? Would you put crystals on it? Would you put crystals on both sides of it? How would that happen?
You can do it just by your hands alone. And I use a little prayer called the light invocation. It says, I invoke the light of God within. I'm a clear and perfect channel. Light is my guide. I always say this 3 times because I have measured the energy increase that takes place when you say this prayer. I don't know, I may be one of the few people who've measured the actual energy of a prayer. Not because I'm a religious person, even though I am an ordained minister. That has nothing to do with it. It's because this actually works. Physics of the energy of that prayer actually can affect the physics of the matter of some object, whether it be organic or even inorganic. I can actually charge it. I do a little thing at parties sometime, and somebody says, well, can you show me something? Well, you're at a party, you can't really do healing. I take a glass of wine, I put it between my hands, I say the prayer, and I hold it in place until the pulsing and the heat and the tingling sensation stop. Then I have them taste the wine before and after, and every single time there'll be a change in the taste of the wine, because the energy of that prayer generates an energy field in my hands, which then changes the molecular structure of the wine.
Is it the prayer or is it your intent? Do you know? Or does it matter?
Well, I'm quite convinced it's a prayer, and how do I know that? Because I did an experiment one time. I was doing a workshop in Hawaii. I took a group of people there because I figured this way I get paid to have a vacation, which I liked.
Right.
And so I went to Hawaii, and one of the ladies who came was from Switzerland, and she was a lady who was from the German sector. There's 3 major sectors there. And so she said, DaEl, would the light invocation be the same if I said it in German? I said, well, I don't know. I had my dowsing rod out, and I dowsed the energy field, having her say it in English, and then we started all over again and had her douse it, saying it in German. It came out exactly the same. And I saw one of my other students come by, and I had an idea, and I said, can you write down phonetically this in German? Somebody could read who doesn't even understand German. She said yes, and she did this. I had a student read this who understood no German. She said it, and the energy field jumped out exactly the same, even though the logic section of the brain was not involved at all. Now we're dealing with universal law. We're not dealing with the human mind.
But that wouldn't have changed someone's intent. I mean, someone's intent in any language.
I didn't tell her what it was going to be or what we're going to do. I simply said, read this.
Just read this.
Just read it.
So she had no intent.
She had no idea that reading was not the prayer that she knew.
I see.
So she could not connect logically that this was the same thing in German. The words don't sound the same.
Right.
There are some similarities, but they're totally different.
Okay, so you see this person who has some disharmony, some symptom. Do you see where the problem is? If they didn't tell you, if somebody walked in and was unable to speak, would you be able to?
Do I clairvoyantly see an energy?
There's a blockage here, there, or would you know where to go just intuitively, or?
Not very well clairvoyantly, but in fact, I can detect energy blockages in anybody, even over the telephone, or I did this on a television program one time where they called in and I scanned the person and was able to be accurate in noting areas of problems. Yeah, I can do that. And part of what I do when I'm doing a therapy session with somebody is I do a thing we call the aura scan, where we scan the body, find detected energy blockages, make corrections right there, so that this becomes an immediate correction in the energy field that surrounds the physical body, which we call the etheric body, and that etheric energy field directly feeds the physical body. So very quickly it will change the energy field of the body without actually touching the person. So yes, I can do that, but that really gets into the psychic realm, and I don't bill myself as a psychic at all. Sure, I can do a lot of things, but that's not what I do. And so what I do is healing, and the psychic part comes when I do distant healing, because I can work on somebody anywhere in the world instantaneously, and within 5 to 10 minutes there will be an energy change. And furthermore, understand it's not just me. Any of my advanced students can do exactly the same thing.
Okay, so somebody comes in and there's a disharmony, and how you can determine it, or they tell you. Now, how do you relieve the disharmony, open the blockages? Do you do it always, you say the prayer 3 times, and then do you hold a crystal? Do you not hold a crystal? How do you
I have a simple routine. Now, the first thing I do is I
give the guy $10.
Yeah, I give him $10, and then he says,
you feel better.
You just feel more. Yeah, give me more money and see how much better I'll feel.
Right.
No, I just have a crystal I've been using now for, about
This is the one you
15
just
years.
gave me. Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah. I use a little pendant called the Wheel of Life.
Right.
This is a very interesting energy device because it, through the geometric form and a lot of other special techniques, I open up a doorway through which a very powerful energy field flows, and then into that particular matrix I put several commands to the subconscious mind that it will cause major changes in the body. Basically all of them saying, heal, go into balance. I hold this in my hand, center of the palm, with the points out. The crystal's in my other hand, again in the center of the palm, but the point toward the fingertips. I place it directly on the physical, but let's say that you had a problem in the shoulder. I put the left hand directly on the pain area, the right hand on the opposite side of that part of the body, in essence making a sandwich with the problem in between it.
Right.
I say the light invocation 3 times, which activates a movement, a pulsing of energy between my right and my left hand.
And you can feel it.
Oh,
You can feel it,
absolutely.
yeah.
Anybody who does this can feel it. All of my students get it immediately. Furthermore, within a brief period of time, that charging going back and forth into the cells causes a major change in the problem of the person. We can reduce physical pain 10 minutes, 15 minutes,
And
maybe
it
eliminate
will
it.
hold?
Pardon?
There's
Maybe.
something that caused the disharmony to happen. There's something that caused the blockage. So would that like free it up, or?
Maybe. It depends on the intensity of the problem. Let's understand, everything is a function of energy. But if you spent 30 years developing your problem, it's unlikely that one 10-minute treatment is going to do it.
It's been a long
This
time,
is not
probably.
a magic wand, people. It isn't poof and suddenly, oh, I'm healed. Doesn't work. Sometimes it does that, and that's scary because I don't quite understand the nature of that. It's not scary. That's surprising because I don't understand why some people will get a really quick total healing and some people will spend maybe 10, 12, 20 treatments to get it done. What we know is there is a massive energy which is blocking the flow. That could have been created over your whole life. Mainly it's emotional, but can also be physical trauma. But that energy has to be dissolved before you can even charge the cells. Now you can go through that energy, like make a hole through it, and then go into the cells and start the charging and reduce physical pain. That's what we do in 10, 15 minutes,
Right.
maybe less. But to get to the core, let's think about the problem as having layers of experience. The closer that you are to the center, that's your oldest experience, and layers of experiences which
See, it's
add
like
to the problem.
it's peeling the onion, kind of.
You have to get to the core of the onion and
Right.
dissolve that before you're going to knock out the thought form that continues to keep the problem alive. I can take your pain away, but will it come back? It's a good chance it can. Let me give you a good example of this. I worked on a lady, a very good friend of mine, who had a benign tumor in her stomach that was about the size of a grapefruit. I mean, it was huge. And she didn't want to go to the hospital and get it done. She asked me to do a healing. So I worked on it for about a half an hour until I felt the energy stop. The body will only do so much healing and then it stops.
Because it's like an overload in a short
Well,
amount of time.
I think what it's doing is I think it has to have a time in which it does the energy change and gets rid of the waste. I think that's important.
I see.
So at any rate, I know it exists. But then you go and do that, in that half-hour period of time, the tumor reduced to at least half or less than half its size. You could visibly see it. So I said, well, look, babe, you're going to take a few more treatments, so come back tomorrow. Well, she got busy. And she called me finally 3 months later.
It wasn't that important to her after that first time, I guess.
It was out there again. Same
So
size.
she waited for grapefruit size.
She really realized that, hey,
I better
so she
do
called me,
something.
she said, do you want to do it again? So I said, okay, but listen, you really need to have multiple treatment. It's unreasonable to think that one treatment's going to take care of all your big
Right.
problems. So I did it again, and this time I really gave it a good shot and made it even smaller, about the size of an orange.
In
Come back
1
tomorrow.
hour session.
Yeah, come back tomorrow. I didn't see her for another 2 months.
Wow.
And this time, here was out again, and I told her, I says, I'm not going to work on you anymore. Go to the doctor and have them cut it out. It's a benign tumor. It's not a difficult operation. They can go in 1 day you'll have it out. You'll be out of the hospital within 1 or 2 days, and you've got it done. It's complete. Because you won't let me do it my way. You won't do what I tell you to do because I know what needs to be done.
Right. It can't be right.
So go and get it cut out. So she did. She went and got it cut out, and that was the end of it. That's a good example. My students know that I tell them this all the time. The greatest healing method you have is called repetition. Do it over and over again until all symptomatic problems are gone and you have a period of at least 30 days in which you do not have a recurrence. That doesn't mean
you would know is you've gotten closer to the root of the problem.
That's correct. You have a good chance that it won't come back again. If it does come back again, it says you still haven't gotten to the root of it. Because if I can get to the root of it and dissolve the thought form that keeps it coming back, it has no way of coming back.
Right. It doesn't exist anymore in a sense. Right. All right. Well, maybe what we'll do is go to the video now, the second video. This one again is by Alana Sweetwater. It's from Behind the Veil CD. It's called Mountain Song. Okay. Alana Sweetwater.
My eyes feast upon a mountain placed in the center of my path, and I know it's time to climb it because I don't want to turn back, but I can't just stand here waiting for the mountain to disappear. The rain falls hard and now it's hard to see the way. Maybe the climb would be easier if I didn't have this heavy heart to carry, but I can't just stand here waiting for the mountain to disappear. But before I lay to rest a while, I had to look and see. And there in the distance stood another mountain, one more mountain ahead of me.
Hi, we're back on the set. So why don't you tell people a little bit about, now I know that, you know, you're into healing the body, but I know, as I said at the opening, you know, healing the disharmony, healing the heart, connecting us to that oneness, love, truth. I mean, so why don't you talk about that a little? I know that's so important.
I found out a couple of years after I got going into the healing part, I realized I had a very good system for physical healing. I mean, it works. That's the bottom line. But I noticed that several of my clients I would work on, the problem would come back again. And I noticed there was one thing in common with all those people, and they were people very heavy emotional, very heavily stressed. So it occurred to me that emotions were what was causing this to come back again. So I thought, well, how do we heal emotions? Now, bear in mind, I was a psychology major in college, and I studied all the modalities, and I listened to everything they had to say. And one of my instructors, and I noticed that there were maybe 50 different ways to do it. And some worked and some didn't work. And I asked my instructor, isn't there one particular method that will work for everybody? And he said, man is too complex for any one method to work on everybody. And a little voice inside me says, that's not true. But I had no way of knowing that. So when I looked at this, I went inside and asked my inner teachers. I have angels or energy masters who talk to me inside my head. Many years ago, if I had said this, they'd have put me in a little jacket, you know.
They're actually coming now, but it's a nicer jacket. It's a tie-dye.
Just tell them I like mine in a little gold lame.
And they let you keep the medallion on.
Hey, I'm happy.
Hey?
It's all an illusion anyway. We're all stuck in this planet Earth.
Right.
So at any rate, I noticed, I asked my inner teachers about this, and they said, what is emotion? I said, well, they're feelings. What are feelings? I said, well, I started to name different types of emotions, you know, love, hate, anger, all that. They said, no, but what are they at their basic point?
Energy.
And I said, well, they're energy. And they said, if they are energy, they must have polarity, which means there must be a positive and a negative charge. And we say that, don't we? Positive emotion, negative emotion.
Right.
Okay? And they said, there's a rule in physics that if you take one energy unit and put it together with another of the opposite polarity, they cancel each other out. So if you want to get rid of the negative emotion stored inside somebody, first of all, you have to go to where they're stored. And bear in mind, it's not a hard disk stuck inside your brain.
That would be easier.
It would be easier. You could
was
open
all
it
in
up
one
and
place.
pull it out and put a new one in. Yeah, it'd be neat.
We're
But
reformatting
it doesn't
the
quite
host
work
now.
that way.
Right.
If it's not solid, then what is it? And I realized that the major example of our emotional storage is our memories. Now, where are memories? Well, they're in our mind. They're not in our brain, even though they're connected to the brain, because we can have memories of times when we're in a coma, unconscious. We can have an awareness. We can have an awareness we're in a death experience where our physical body dies, and we can aware. Then you come back again. You're aware of it.
Yeah, certainly when you sleep, you can have conscious.
Well, when you're asleep, your body is not operating, your brain is not operating, but you certainly have a consciousness. So the mind is not the brain, but memory is in the mind. Now I'm looking at it and saying, okay, well, if that's true, if I could locate where the memory is, I can isolate the emotion. If I can isolate the emotion, and I can create a positive emotion and bring it into that negative memory, it should cancel the emotion out.
Almost like one of those sound things.
Exactly. Now, here's the thing. It's even more closely aligned with color or black and white. Because once you dissolve the emotion, you can still see the picture. But it's like I'm looking at an old memory in black and white. There is no charge, no energy. It's just, I remember that. But
almost like it happened to somebody else in a way.
And in fact, it rapidly fades away from your mind. You can barely remember it at all because there's no energy to keep it alive.
So that would bring us more and more into a harmony. So if we can get rid of all the negativity in us, all that would be left is unconditional love?
What if you had a method by which you could dissolve every negative experience you've ever had in your memories in all your life, and any one experience, no matter how traumatic it was, could be done in as little as 15 minutes? You could make a list of everything in your life, all your experiences.
Which you wouldn't know them all, though. I mean, wouldn't some be unconscious?
I'll tell you something interesting. You can even dissolve experiences you're not even aware of. That gets fun. But you can do it.
Now, also, you talk about, other guests on the show have talked about past lives. So, I mean, these things could have built up over literally hundreds of thousands of years, these negative emotions, you were talking about the tie earlier.
What we're talking about is emotions that are physically in this dimension, this particular experience, this lifetime. Even if it were generated by something in the past, and I'm quite sure that that's true. Mm-hmm. Even if they're experienced now. If they're experiencing now, you dissolve them now. You don't, and yet at the same time, I believe that I could take somebody back in a hypnotic regression, back to a past life, using the same method to dissolve it in that past life, because in my mind, it's just a different kind of big hard disk memory. Here's a big super memory disk that experiences all the lives you've ever had. It's a big overview. Okay, then you have individual.
And so what would be the result if you went into this big disk and cleaned out all the disharmonies, all the emotions, all the places where negativity exists? What would be left on that hard drive?
Pure light.
Pure light.
And guess what?
And in a human body, that feels like unconditional love.
You probably would not even need your physical body anymore, because you would be in unification with God, because God is light, God is pure love. If you became pure love, guess what? You become God, or reunified.
So in other words, when Jesus or other masters, or even now people have said the Father and I are one, somehow their hard disk had gotten fairly clean, that was in some way a reality to them.
Maybe through a lot of past lives they had cleaned it up. Because every time you come into a life, if we assume that reincarnation is true, and you have all these past experiences where you did it the wrong way, you have to make it up, because the law of karma, interestingly enough, the law of karma simply is the law of balance and harmony.
Coming back into harmony.
Well, if we have this spiritual balance, perfect balance would be perfect harmony, which would be love and unity with God. Okay? But in past lives, and we did it wrong, where we did something that was against that inner code that says don't do this, and we did it anyway, we have an imbalance. Okay, so we have to do something in the next life that helps to create that balance back again, because the law of the universe is everything has to go into balance.
Now, but your healing techniques can do that also. I mean, can bring that balance into wherever with this.
At least in this life, and I'm convinced personally that if we can have a hypnotic regressionist person who's working with me, and they can take the person into a past life where they've had trauma, I'm convinced I could dissolve that. Because to me, any emotion is simply a form of energy. And as a healer, I work with energy all the time. You can always change an energy from one type to another. If I have something that's really hot and I bring some cold in, I change the energy. And it's exactly the opposite polarity. Why can't you do the same thing with any emotional state? You want to...
Okay, so how do you determine it? Let's say, okay, you come in, somebody comes into your office, your room, and says, how would you do it? How would it work?
I've got a problem. If you were to come to a therapist, you'd have a problem, wouldn't you?
I would say that you wouldn't be there.
Otherwise, why are you going to go pay that money?
Right, you probably wouldn't.
No,
right.
You have a problem. You know you got a problem. Even if you're not sure what caused the problem, you know you have a problem. And the problem is usually connected to some automatic behavioral response.
Wouldn't you say that most people would come in, I'm not happy? If they were going to a therapist, something, I don't feel good, I don't feel right, I don't feel happy, I don't feel inspired, I don't feel energetic, I don't feel empowered.
So as a therapist, you start talking to them to find out what is it about your life you're unhappy.
And you would do the same?
Oh, sure. First of all, I have to define what your problem is or I can't work on it. Well, I take that back. I can work on it, it takes a lot longer. I can work on it even if I don't know what your problem is. I can work on it if you don't know what caused your problem.
Right.
I can still work on it. If it's an unknown source, if something happened in your childhood, for heaven's sakes, that's carried through all your life, I can still, through an indirect method, I can go directly to it and find it. Once I can find it and locate it and isolate it, then I can help the person to send energy directly into it, and it will dissolve and it's gone.
And you'll also be teaching, when you're doing this with a client, a patient, however you would look at it, you're also teaching them the technique so they, make you obsolete and can start to deal with their own disharmony.
You found out my secret.
I really did. Very tricky.
Yeah. I told this to a group of psychotherapists one time, and they got a little upset. Said, well, you're going to put us out of business. I said, no, I'm not.
Right.
What
There's
I'm going to
plenty
do
of
is,
stuff around.
I'm going to teach you how to work on 10 people in a day and work on a permanent basis with them to dissolve their problems, which they won't come back for that problem again. And instead, you work on 100 patients instead of 1 or 2. Now you really be doing healing instead of just repetitive nonsense. I worked on a lady in upstate New York. I was at an ashram, and I was there for the satsang with the guru. And at the break, one of the head of the ashram came to me and said, DaEl, I've got a person I want you to work on. This lady, I took her off to one corner, and she explained to me that she had this problem with her mother, that she had never resolved, and her mother died. So how am I going to resolve it? My mom is dead. I am never going to resolve this thing. She had been in therapy for 11 years. It was actually worse than it was when it first started. It took me 15 minutes, and it was totally gone and never came back again.
Wow.
And not even in a therapeutic situation, but because I knew what her problem was, I showed her how to isolate it, get into the emotion, and make a change. It's really that fast. If you understand the nature of energy, then emotional healing is no different than physical healing. In fact, all physical healing has to dissolve negative emotions.
Okay, so what did you say to her? I mean, you're not revealing anything. We don't.
No, I'll tell you.
Basically, privilege here.
Her mother had always manipulated her and dominated her. I had her take her into a situation where her mother was shrunk down to just large enough to be in her hand. Her mother always shouted at her. These are certain keys you look for. And I had her imagine that she had her mother in her hand, and she was shouting at her, but she couldn't hear, so she held her up to the ear so her mother would have a chance to shout at her. That's so silly, and it's so disempowering of the mother. Suddenly, she realized that their mother had no power over her. I took her even further, and I had her actually bring her mother a little bit larger so she was the size of a baby, and put her with diapers. Unclothe her and put diapers on her and feed her a bottle. And what that did is it took away the power of the parent. But
so was it like shining light on darkness, making something that was so heavy in a human being and lightening it, bringing light to it?
When you dissolve the negative
and why would that dissolve the negative chaos? Would it just energetically?
Because there was a positive thought form attached to what she did. She took control of her experience, which I teach all of my clients to take control of their own. They do more work at home than they do when they come to me. If they come back to me for multiple treatments, I take them from where they are and give them a whole new thing to work with. But in this case, her problem was she had no power. Her mother had all the power. And she was very angry at her mother because her mother had always dominated her, and she hated that.
Right. Well, who would like it?
Well, but the bottom line is she had no control over that now because her mother was dead. She could never make it right physically. But the problem was not with her mother. The problem was in her mind.
Right.
She dissolved
obviously. Right.
Now, I'll give you an idea how you can dissolve, another example, how you can dissolve the emotion that's so traumatic that you would think it can never be done. One of my students was an elderly lady, and I was working with symbols and showing them how symbols actually have an energy field about them that you can feel by placing it on the back of the person and do muscle testing and show that it weakens or strengthens it. So I was asking for, give me 2 symbols, one which represents bad or evil and the other represents good. Well, the good was a heart. Well, everybody knows that. That's positive.
Right.
And she offered the swastika from Nazi Germany. Well, that's a good one. Certainly an awful lot of evil done with that as a symbol. And so we did some tests and we showed that actually weakened the body. And I said, well, there's an awful lot of negative energy attached to this because of all the work that Hitler did. And when I said the word Hitler, I could see her flinch. So I went to her and I said, the word Hitler is really bad for you. She said, oh, he was the greatest monster there was. I can't even say the name. It just makes me so angry. I said, that's not doing you any good.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to him, and it's not doing you any good.
He's dead. He's bones.
Right.
If he was aware, he'd be happy he was making you unhappy.
Right.
'Cause
That's what he lived
did.
for. Right.
Yeah. So I said, wouldn't you like to get rid of it? She said, oh, it can never happen. It's just so terrible. In about 7, 8 minutes, I think I had it timed, she was able to say the word Hitler, and she smiled. But the funny thing about it was,
that's fantastic.
she got upset at me.
Yeah, that was how she
She
identified
said,
it.
he didn't deserve me to smile about him, to feel good about him. I said, babe, he's dead.
Yeah, right.
It's only in your mind, and don't you want you to feel good? And I said,
and you
know
to feel
something?
lighter.
I've helped you to get rid of this, and that'll be rid forever. You'll never be able to say the word Hitler or see the swastika and feel bad again. You'll always smile when you do it. You'll have a happy feeling. Because here's the key. If you're able to pump positive charge into the memory, when you dissolve the negative and you put in positive, guess what? That image that was bad for you now suddenly becomes good. And why not? Because it's just pure energy. And we live on reactive processes that are 95% of all of our actions are not. They're reactions. They're not conscious actions. We do everything automatically. Well, all of our emotions that run us are done on automatic, whether we like it or not. What I'm saying is you can dissolve the negative, you can change it to positive, and actually what happens is you can actually change your behavioral response from a negative to a positive. Then you're free.
Is there a place where there's no negative and no positive? There just is?
Sure. Once you've dissolved the negative, for instance, in a thought form, a memory, you're into that no space, that blank space. Oh yeah, I mean, I can see the picture. I can see where Daddy was beating me when I was 3 years old, but I don't have any feeling about it. The no space is where you have no feeling either way. And you know there are many things that you can think about you don't have a particular feeling about.
Now, is no space for a human being, is it more in harmony than a positive space?
I don't think so.
Because, I mean, would you say that if somebody has a positive space, because of the nature of that we live in a duality, there's going to be a negative space? But the neutral space is that space of, like, in between, like the razor's edge, where like love lives, where there's no duality, where the unconditional love lives?
If you dissolve all the negative in your life and you replace it with positive, where's the duality? There's duality because we create that. It is one of the laws that all energy has a capability of being either positive or negative. Now, if I have a match, for instance, I have an energy source. But if I burn a house down, that's negative. But if I cook a dinner, that's positive.
Well, also, maybe
energy.
that house needed burning down. I mean, because there's a lot of ways.
I'm just saying, you have the capability as a human being, with our powers of our mind, to make choices of how we use energy. I choose to do everything in a positive way. It doesn't mean I have dissolved all the negative energy in my mind. I can still get angry, but it takes a long time for me to get angry. Instead, something can happen, and I react in a very powerful, positive way. A good example is my grandson was in a car and parked in an incline, and he came out of the car. I'd already gone into this house. He came out of the car, he bumped the thing, and the car started rolling down, and he fell, and the car was rolling towards his leg and his body. I heard him scream, and I went through the screen door. I didn't open anything. And I held that car back. Now, I stopped a 4,000-pound car. I felt it later as my muscles were really sore, but I stopped it cold and pulled the child out and then let the car drive back until we could stop it. Now, that's a positive reaction to something that could, by fear, from hearing it, fear could have paralyzed me. That's the negative. But without the fear there, what is my reaction? It was one of power and positive effort. My full focus was on creating a change and resolving the problem, not on sitting there helplessly thinking how pitiful I am.
For leaving him in the car.
Well, not only that, but the fact that
I couldn't do anything.
The fact that if I hadn't done something, the car would have rolled over. If the very least it would have broken his legs. If it rolled over the center of the body, it could have killed him. Okay? I stopped the car. I have no ability to do that consciously. I can't, I'm strong, but I'm not that strong. But under that circumstance, that's exactly
Well,
what
we
it
all
is.
have that power in us. That's what it
But the
proves.
reaction was what counted. Instead of reacting in fear because I heard my child scream and being paralyzed, immediately I was in motion. So in motion so much I had no awareness to wreck the screen door. I went right through it and then stopped the car.
Good thing there wasn't a wooden door. Everything would have
Who knows
gone
what would
right
have happened? I would have probably bounced off it. I don't know. But my reaction was such. Okay, well, the
Right.
point I'm making is, what would happen to we as spiritual people if all the things that kept us back by being negative, all the behavioral processes that were created by our life, growing up and experiencing life, what if that was all gone? How would you react to life? In a positive or a negative way?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. It's coming to the end of the show. It's amazing. So, again, how do we get to that positive? How do we know it? How do we have that experience? And there were a lot of clues and tips and availabilities for us all tonight. Again, if you want any information about DaEl, his workshops, his work, 805-687-2053. We love you. Good night. God bless you. Thanks for coming.